Well, greetings everybody. Welcome to our Arrow After Show. This is for Season 2, Episode number 11 on this January the 22nd. We are so glad that you guys are joining us today. My name is John Campea. I'm going to be your host today as we talk about all things Arrow. And of course, joining me, as always, not two people, just one today. We've got Kaori here.
Hey, guys.
And half of Team Amazing.
Yes.
Anne is not here today. Anne is off on at a work conference. She's been gone all week, but she will be back for next week's episode of Arrow. And we are so glad that you guys have decided to join us today. Just a heads up and warning. I'm still sick. So you're going to hear me coughing and clearing my throat and sucking on lozenges and all that kind of stuff. So my apologies in advance for all that. So here we are talking about Arrow. So Kaori, and by the way, we're going to talk about the things we liked about this episode, the things we weren't so thrilled about with this episode, and then we're going to just do the entire rest of the show taking your questions from the live chat board. So there are already hundreds of you guys in the chat board talking. So just in a few minutes, you can start putting in questions, and Kaori and I will keep our eye open on that, and that's all we're going to do for the second half of the show is interacting, taking comments and questions from the chat board. So, Kaori, let's start with you.
Okay.
Let's start about the positives. What are the things you really liked about tonight's episode of Arrow?
I love the fact that they made Laurel useful again, and she's the only one that knows that something is going on with Sebastian Blood and that he is not a good person, even to the point that Oliver is kind of not sure if he trusts her, as we see in the end. I love that she asks Oliver, or Arrow in this case, to investigate. And I love how much Slade frightens Sebastian Blood, because Sebastian Blood is a scary character, but then we've got Deathstroke or Slade Wilson that really scares him. That is great. What I wrote also that I like at the end how Arrow comes to Roy and offers to help him out, because that means that it's happening. It's happening. Those are my big pluses.
For me, if anything, we're going to talk about things we liked about this episode. We start and end with Slade.
Okay.
How badass is Slade?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he is just, and it's not just when he's kicking everybody's ass, which was really great when he just ripped through blood in his guys just like that. But even when he's just sitting behind a desk, he's just so cool. Mm-hmm. The way they've made this character, Manu Ben, I mean, I loved him. For those of you who haven't seen Spartacus, and I know I've mentioned this a number of times, he plays Crixus in Spartacus, and he's just amazing. And he gets more and more interesting as the show goes on. He's just, I love this actor. He brings, Manu brings, he owns the screen when he's on it. You know, his presence is just so tangible when he's on screen. It's just very, very cool to see. I really like him a lot. And I love him in this role. And how great does his new Deathstroke outfit look?
It looks so good. It looks even better than I thought it would.
Oh, yeah.
I was amazed, and I'm upset that I only saw it for just a couple seconds. I wish I saw more of it, but it looks great.
Oh, yeah. I would have liked to have seen more of it. And I have to admit, I did like some of the Laurel stuff today. You know what's funny? You have been, I won't say complaining, you have been observing that she's been looking very bony. And whatever. And we mentioned it again tonight watching the show. But then it struck me, maybe they're doing that on purpose. Maybe they're wanting her to look more frail and weak because of the drug abuse. Because remember, when she's talking to her dad, too, he says, I mean, good God, you look like hell.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, well, you know what? Maybe this is on purpose. Maybe they made her lose like 10 more pounds to look really anorexic and frail to kind of go along with the whole drug abuse thing.
I would be a little surprised if that was the case. She looks very unhealthy. I hate to say that. She does. But, you know, maybe it is because it's part of the Arrow thing, and that's the art of an actor. So power to her.
Well, I mean, Christian Bale in, what was that one movie Christian Bale was in?
Fighter?
No. Where he dropped down to like 105 pounds. And he was just all skin and bones. Guys in the chat board, help me out.
Yes.
What is the name of that movie that Christian Bale was in where he dropped like over 100 pounds and he was just all bone? He was just all skin and bone. I can't remember it off the top of my head. But anyway, so part of me thinks, I'm starting to think that they did it on purpose, that she purposefully dropped even more weight to look unhealthy and to look like somebody who'd be having a drug addiction problem. And I thought, suddenly I'm like, okay, well then that makes sense. That's actually a good thing if that's what they were doing.
Yeah.
One of my favorite parts of the show, though, Arrow goes to her apartment and he startles her and he says, "You asked me to do a favor for you. Now I want you to do something for me." And instantly I said, "Take off your shirt." but they didn't.
Filthy.
A number of other really good things about this thing. I'm liking the Brother Blood character more and more.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I wasn't really thrilled with him at first.
Okay.
But, I'm liking him as Sebastian Blood. He is so slick and so convincing as Sebastian Blood that it becomes more terrifying. It becomes more scary to me when the villain becomes. I know he's the villain, and yet I like him. And that's really terrifying.
Here's the thing about Sebastian Blood. I kind of oppose that because he scared me at first, but now that I see him so scared of Slade Wilson, and I mean, who wouldn't be, he doesn't scare me anymore. You know, like it's that frightening factor kind of disappeared for me. I know something's going to happen. Laurel's on to him, and even though he's trying to cover it up with her drug addiction, it's going to come out.
Oh yeah, it'll come out. And well, I'll save the thing I didn't like so much for that last part. For the first time, and maybe ever in the show, I like something Roy did.
Really?
Yeah, that scene where he was beating up the hooker killer. There was an intensity to that scene. And I like the way he lost control and even hit Sin. But it's funny that he's a super strong guy who can punch through concrete, and he hits Sin, and I don't think she has a scratch on her.
Yeah,
so, I mean, one little, guys, can you fix that a bit? So I like that. I like that scene, actually. It felt a lot more intense than I thought it would have. And look, and it goes without saying, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I do want to point out the things I really liked about the show this episode. Stephen Amell's amazing again. Diggle, Felicity. I know I sound like a broken record, but in every episode, when these three are on screen together, it's magic. It works. The dialogue's great. The chemistry is fantastic that they've built between these guys. It's just great television whenever the three of them are on. That will be the segue into things that I didn't like about this episode.
Okay.
Whenever Diggle, Felicity, and Oliver on screen, it always works. Roy, Thea, and even to some extent Sin.
Yeah.
Outside of that one scene where Roy is beating up the guy, almost unwatchable.
You think so?
Almost unwatchable.
So are we going to the negatives?
Let's get into negatives. So is this here about you? Your negatives.
Yeah, it's funny because actually you all know that I absolutely like Roy Harper, and I've always been an advocate for go Roy Harper between the Campeas who don't really like him especially. But in this episode I was very unhappy with the things that he was doing, and I know that that's possibly a result of the serum messing with his mind as well as like his physical attributes. But why is he going to Sin when he has a girlfriend that wants to take care of him? Why is he looking to protect and be like Arrow without needing Arrow? And then when he sees Arrow, he wants to kick his ass. And also like little holes, like what are the odds of Sin getting into that guy's car that is going to like hang her or whatever?
And I'm sorry, how did Roy... When she gets in a car where they have no idea where they're going, how is Roy just suddenly magically in that parking lot?
I knew exactly.
That was a little convenient.
So there's a lot of holes in the Roy Harper section. I just felt like it was dumb, the whole Roy Harper part. I feel like there could have been a more smarter way of doing that, and that's what I think. Other than Roy, I didn't really like the island scenes so much this episode, and I usually love the island scenes. I got really confused where Sarah is sitting there saying she trusts Dr. Ivo and that Oliver should trust him too, kind of, and she's implying that. And then she sneaks out and has a conversation with him, basically to tell him that she's leaving him. I just didn't really feel the connection there. Yeah.
I'm going to disagree with you on this. Okay. I really did like the island scene because it introduced some concepts to me. First of all, Sarah would be conflicted because she was with this guy for a year. And it's natural that she would go, well, maybe, and she starts to just reflect on what she thinks are the positives. That's natural. But then she had that really great conversation with him, and she realizes, no, you're bad news. And Oliver was there to see it. The most interesting thing to me, though, about that entire island sequence was the story about how, Laurel knew I was there at a party with you and called the cops.
Yeah.
And, Oliver says, that doesn't sound like something Laurel will do. And she's like, not everybody's what they seem. I love the concept that there's a different level to Laurel here. That I think at some point, in some way, she is really going to let Oliver down. So I got a feeling now something is coming. I love that notion because the Laurel character, for the most part, I've seen some glimpses of hope the last couple of weeks. Last week, especially, and a little bit this week. But for the most part this season, the Laurel character to me has been drastically misused.
Yeah. Agreed.
And just kind of dead weight on the show. And I don't blame the actress for that or whatever. I just don't think they've navigated her with the same brilliance that they've navigated a lot of the other characters with the show. And if they're introducing another level of, let's say, flaws to her, that to me becomes a bit interesting. And it is going to be interesting to see where they go with Laurel right now because now she's not a DA anymore.
Yeah.
So what does that leave her with? Where does she go from here? That's rather interesting. So yeah, well, anyway, where were some of the other things maybe you didn't like about the episode?
We're talking about Laurel, and I want to come to her defense for some strange reason because I usually don't like. Well, that's funny because the part that you were saying about how you like that layer of negative Laurel, I agree with you to some extent, but I didn't like that storyline, how she was the one that might have been sneaky for, in fact, she's the one that stole Oliver from her sister, possibly.
I love that because I didn't see that coming. I think that's a really interesting wrench. Because it's funny because I've been getting bored with Laurel. She's dead weight this season, blah, blah, blah. And then they throw that in, and to me, suddenly it's like, whoa, okay, this I didn't see this coming. What? Now I'm kind of like, tell me more about what's going on with Laurel, which I haven't said all season.
And I think I think that part was to really emphasize that Laurel is starting to spiral down.
Right.
Like you said, she's lost her job. She has a drug problem, and now no one trusts her. Even Oliver at the end of the episode is thinking, she is my weakness. She is my blind spot. So maybe he's going to be a lot more trepidatious in the future when it comes to her. So we'll see what happens there. But
yeah, once again, I'm just so stoked about seeing now Slade and Arrow go toe to toe. I'm just. This episode just did that. And it's weird because Slade was on screen for maybe 2 minutes this episode.
I know, not enough though.
But it felt like his presence is so great and the way they've handled this character is so great. It feels like he was a much bigger part of the episode. In reality, unfortunately, though, he was only on screen for about 2 minutes, and Roy and Thea were on screen together for about 15 minutes.
But
which is really bad.
Character is so bold and out there that it just feels monumentous when he's on screen.
It does. It really, really does. With Brother Blood, I feel like we're inching closer and closer to understanding really everything that's going on with him. How did he get tied in with Slade in the first place? Because obviously Blood has... He's not just a general in Slade's army. He has his own army.
Yeah.
These are his followers. I really want to understand this dynamic more between Blood and Slade. I think that's going to be really fascinating when they finally get around to revealing stuff like that. Another thing, since when do police raid, a full police raid, tearing over a person's apartment and ripping it apart to find a bottle of prescription drugs that she lifted from her daddy.
Yeah, and
in what world does that happen?
And that's part of the negatives in this episode, where those are one of the holes, because there was a couple. I know this is weird, but I would have thought she would at least hidden it, since the pills are full in her purse, because she keeps taking them, right? Another one was in the very beginning, and I remember you made a joke about it, when Sebastian kills his mom. Was his mask in the hallway and no one noticed it? Like, what just happened there?
Wait a minute. So let me get this straight. Hold on a second. So Sebastian's in the room with his mother where no one else can see them. He decides, I need to slip out into the hallway where there are other people to put on my villainous mask to slip back into my mother's room and kill her. That really kind of made no sense to me whatsoever.
And also, another hole that maybe you might be able to solve. That sounded really strange. How
Whoa! Lady said that to me in high school all the time. Okay, anyway, sorry.
How does Laurel have all this access to visiting Maya and having them call her when Maya dies? Because she's not a relative. Ask away.
Ask away. Start putting in your questions. And YouTube needs to fix their live streaming.
Yeah,
some people are saying they're getting freezing problems.
I keep refreshing, but I do have our very first question. So while I ask this question and while we answer, why don't you guys drop it off and, like John mentioned in the last episode, please say question and then your question, so I can easily see it.
Yeah, so when you're writing a question in the chat board, put question and then put in your question so we know what we're doing. So you got some already?
I got one so far because it's a slow stream. Ryan Brumley asks, do you think we will see Walter again?
Who is Walter again?
Walter is Moira's husband.
Oh.
Yes.
He's certainly there in case we need him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's possible. He's certainly there in case we need him, so they could go that way if they want to.
Okay. I think that we may or may not, because he did cover for Oliver against Summer Glau in terms of the company. Right. So that's a huge possibility. I would like to see him again because he was one of my favorite characters last season. He's
super interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, he's slick and he's got that accent and obviously he's very powerful. So I would like to see him used more. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, next one. Tom Snow question. Do you guys think Oliver will reveal his identity to Roy when they are training?
I hope not, because that would be dumb.
Okay.
He barely trusts the guy at all. So why... he hasn't revealed his identity to Laurel.
Right.
And if they were to suddenly have him come out now and reveal his identity to a kid he barely trusts at all in the first place, I'm going to be very put off by that. I'm going to be very turned off by that if that happens.
An episode ago, I would have said, yes, please. I would love to see them work together and be a dynamic duo. But Roy disappointed me in this episode. He was acting kind of childish, and I get that he's mentally unstable.
He always has. This entire series
I didn't feel that way till this particular episode.
Really?
Yeah, and because of that, I think that it's almost like he doesn't deserve to know who Arrow really is just yet. So yes, I would be disappointed as well. I think that he will eventually find out, because that's probably going to be their way to connect with each other and have an understanding like, oh, we both have powers. We both are here to be vigilantes, plural now, but we'll see. All right. R.E.A. Callan has a question. Do you think we'll see a rematch between Arrow and Merlin this season?
Do I think we'll see a rematch between Merlin and Oliver? Yes. This season? I'm not so sure. They pretty much brought him in, just reassured everybody, hey, Merlin's still alive, Merlin's still around, he's still a bad guy, got this tie to Ra's al Ghul, and then they just dropped him off. So I think they're going to leave him out there I think we'll see him again this season. I don't know that we'll see the big rematch this season, though. What do you think?
I agree. I don't think there's going to be a rematch because, there's such a huge villain in Deathstroke / Slade Wilson that we're going to have to deal with right now. And we still got to deal with Sebastian Blood for a while, too. And we only have maybe how many episodes? 10 or less episodes left.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be other big reveals to. I think Thea might die before that.
All right.
So.
What else we got?
All right. Next one, and I'm sorry. I think his name's Tristan. Question, and we've kind of addressed this question before, but since we've furthered along with episodes, where do you see the story going involving Malcolm Merlyn, Deathstroke, and Grundy? So we already talked about Malcolm, but how about Ra's al Ghul, Deathstroke, and Grundy?
There's a lot of different things they can do with it. And I mean, I think at some point, what we're going to see with all these different factions going on, I don't believe there's any connection between Deathstroke and Ra's al Ghul. So what I think will happen is at some point, and Merlin is kind of off on his own thing too, because now Merlin is he has conflict with the League of Assassins.
Okay.
So you got Merlin, you got everything going on with Deathstroke, and I'll include the Brother Blood fraction under that as well. So Merlin, Deathstroke, League of Assassins with Ra's al Ghul.
Truth that he is the father. So I think that my theory is that at some point they are going to have to go save Thea. And it's going to not just be Merlin and Oliver, but it's also going to be Roy Harper as well because of his attachment to her. And by the way, I just wanted to mention that I feel that Thea and Laurel kind of switched roles because for me, Thea has been kind of useless in the past recent episodes. With the fact that all she's doing is kind of complaining to Roy. I know she's trying to be concerned, but it doesn't feel right.
No, like I said, I find when Roy and Thea are on screen together, it's dead weight. I feel like the show screeches to a halt. I feel like that's when I can take a short nap and not really care. And once again, I don't mean that as a criticism on the performers. I just think it's interesting to me that the showrunners of Arrow are so good and so smart and do such great character chemistry and development with their main characters. And yet this season, I really feel like just make the characters like Roy and Thea just an afterthought.
Yeah.
And give and Laurel. And I really feel like they've kind of dropped the ball on those three characters. Now, fortunately, they're a minor part of the show, and the main part of the show they're doing a brilliant job at, which is what makes the show so amazing. But it does kind of feel to me like they've dropped the ball a little bit with these other side characters, and I really hope.
Not even Roy to you? Not even the fact that really?
No, Roy to me is a wasted character.
What would it take for you to like Roy in an ideal world? Where would Roy be for you? Because I love Roy for the most part.
It's difficult to say because Roy to me is a completely immature, range limited, one-dimensional, completely predictable, rather annoying, completely unbelievable character. So basically, what would they have to do to make Roy likable to me? Completely remake him. I mean, completely remake him.
Okay.
I gotta say this. I gotta say this. And I know I'm gonna get some people get mad at me, and I'm whatever. But I gotta say it. And I'm hoping next year I can say, man, this is really improved. But I gotta say this for now. I cannot remember away from the TV. Come back a few minutes later. I know I won't have missed anything. And I don't like feeling that way about one of my favorite shows on television.
Oh, boo.
I know, but
maybe things will change.
Maybe things will change.
Maybe things will change.
All right, let's take a couple more.
Okay. The question, do you think Laurel, your favorite, will get injected with the serum to become Black Canary in place of Sarah?
Nope, because even if she gets, we covered this before kind of, even if she does get injected with serum, look, Slade got injected with serum. Slade was already a finely tuned, highly trained weapon killing machine. With Roy, somehow, some way, he's a ninja already. They don't explain how just a street rat, to use a term from Aladdin, I don't know how they could just take a street rat and say he's already got all the martial arts skills in the world, but at least with Roy, you have a guy who's they've already established has a huge amount of fighting skill, and now he's got this power. Laurel is still physically useless.
Well, she did have that bar fight, but she did miss when she tried to punch Officer Bailey, who was posing as Sebastian Blood.
She's physically useless. So just because you give her super strength, I don't think that. Nah, that wouldn't do it for me. That would be a pretty weak plot device, I think.
Okay, next question. Do you think that if Barry's show doesn't go through, they would make him a series regular?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah?
I mean, I think regular is too strong of a word, but I think frequently appears. I don't think you become a character that would be in every single episode. Like, he wouldn't be a Diggle.
But he would be like a Sarah.
He could be like a Sarah,
right?
Who maybe like every third episode we see him in there and they go, it's like, we could really use Barry's help on this, and then go get Barry. I do see him becoming a what's the right term for it? A semi-regular. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
That he could be a semi-regular. I do see that happening if the Flash show does not get picked up for series, which we'll have to wait and see if that happens.
Yeah, I think that's very possible that he becomes a constant on the show, and I do hope that if the Flash show doesn't go through, that we do see more of Barry Allen. I liked his character, I liked the actor as well, and I liked the relationship that was flourishing between him and Felicity, and the kind of conflict that it caused, because it made Oliver start to realize what was so special about Felicity, and sometimes it takes one man to have the other man realize what is in front of him.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Who do you think will find out Oliver's secret this season? So far, there has only been Barry Allen.
That's a good question. I mean, some series get a lot of series that have somebody with a secret. The main star has a secret. They let too many people find out what that secret is, and it starts to get out of hand. Like, I know one of my other absolute favorite shows is Grimm, and it seems like every other week somebody else is finding out who he is. So and that's a lot of funny. I like that this season they've put the brakes on how many people find out who he is, and I like that Slade hasn't told Sebastian Blood who he is.
Right.
Like, Blood knows that Slade knows who Arrow is, but he's not telling him. I like that. If there's anybody who's going to find out, I mean, it is possible he's going to tell Roy. And the effects of this drug, and what 15 other subjects did you take? You can't teach him crap.
Well, we don't know.
If the drug is twisting his mind, how does Oliver know how I can teach you how to control it? How? You didn't do a very good job with Slade. What makes you think you can do it? What makes him think it's even possible? If it's a medical thing that the drug is going to start messing with his brain, I don't care how much you try to have positive thinking, it's still going to mess with his brain. And so I hope they come up with some other explanation. Maybe we'll find out something in the flashbacks. Maybe Oliver, while on the island, finds out that there is a way to control it, but he wasn't able to do it for Slade.
No, he wasn't.
But he knows. I hope they introduce something that makes sense of that statement. That makes sense for Oliver to go to him. Yeah, I can help you beat this thing. Says who? Well, show us something that shows that makes sense.
I think the statement is not what's important. I think what's important is the fact that they're unifying, and that's probably what the point was, because they want Roy Harper to connect with Oliver, and they want them to have this alliance that a lot of the fans have been waiting for. Yeah. And hopefully Roy will make you a happy man, John.
Yeah, well, listen, guys, I think we're going to wrap this up. It's been about, we've been going for about a half hour, and apparently YouTube is giving us fits with freezing. Everybody's talking about how the live stream is freezing a lot. It's not on our end. I've got my data rates up, and the data rates are streaming. So obviously there's an issue with YouTube. Our apologies for that. But once again, great episode of Arrow. It's even fun talking about the things that we didn't like about it.
Yeah.
That's how good this show is. So, Kaori, where can people find you online if they want to reach out and chat with you?
Well, you can find me right here on the bottom, Kaorious, right there. And then you can find my home slice and Campea right here too, part of Team Amazing.
And Campea. And you can find me on the various social media channels at John Campea. And that's where you can find me on Facebook and on Twitter and whatever. So thanks a lot for joining us, guys. We'll be back again for next week's episode of Arrow, and hopefully the live stream stuff will all be fixed by then. So thanks a lot for joining us, and keep commenting, keep chatting. We read all the comments all throughout the week that are in the video. So if you're watching this later on, keep putting in your comments and keep the conversation going. Thanks a lot again for joining us, guys. For Kaori, my name's John, and we'll talk to you later.